I don't need it. I don't need it. I definitely don't need it. I 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 need it!
Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, across the desert or across the sea. Welcome to another exciting new episode of Quitting Marijuana Through Secular Means. On today's episode, I want to talk about why I left the church. On December 8th, 2022, I had my first ever panic attack. I didn't know what was going on, I was confused, and I thought I was having a heart attack. What I didn't know was that I was experiencing marijuana withdrawal symptoms. They were just so alien to me because I had gone 3 years straight smoking marijuana. Around that time, my small world was falling apart. One of my best friends, who was like a father to me, had just been diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. The small business that I worked so hard to start was crumbling apart. I was unemployed. I was completely delusional, probably suffering from psychosis, and I didn't know what to do. So I turned to the church. I had stumbled across a short film called Tabula Rasa. This film was about a flood. It's based on true events that occurred in Canada and killed a whole bunch of people. The film is about a man who loses everything in the flood, including his mother. And I don't want to spoil the ending for you, but an angel appears before him. I was so inspired by the film that I decided to go back to church. At the time, it felt like my life was headed nowhere and that the only salvation was through God. So I put my entire faith in the church and thought that the only way I could be saved was through God. I ended up going to a small church that was in the proximity to my apartment. I was loyal to that place, going twice a week and learning everything that I could about Christ and God. As time went on and I began to gain sobriety, I started to realize that my beliefs were actually very irrational and they were caused by fear, the fear of death. You see, I personally believe that a lot of church attendees are actually big children wearing adult clothes. They're so afraid of death because they're worried about all the things they're going to miss out when they die. It's kind of like whenever you want to put a little kid to bed and he doesn't want to go to bed because he wants to stay up and continue watching TV or playing video games. Part of being an adult is accepting truth and accepting that there is no such thing as eternal life and there is no afterlife. Other things that I realized while I was going to church was that the people who would attend church were no better than those who would stay home. They didn't necessarily have better lives. I then also realized that the real reason that I wanted to quit was to preserve my youthful looks, and that I was actually a very vain and shallow person. As I began to do my own research and development, I came to find out the obvious, which is that the crude combustion of smoke makes you age. And I personally love the way I look, and I want to preserve my youthful looks for as long as I can. Fear and irrationality are not good reasons to believe in something, and faith is not the pathway to truth. I also thought to myself, had it been a mosque or a Buddhist temple that was in the proximity to my home, then I would have been a Buddhist or I would have been a Muslim. As time went on, I couldn't find any real reason to continue attending. Not to mention that I was also faced with the responsibilities of an adult. As I began to study the Bible, I also came to find out how vague, confusing, and self-contradicting the Bible actually is. Many believers will argue that we shouldn't take anything in the Old Testament seriously because the New Testament trumps the Old one. If that were the case, then you'd have to throw out the book of Genesis and the Ten Commandments. Another thing I also learned was that there was more than 10 commandments. And to top it all off, Jesus Christ in the New Testament on the Sermon on the Mount claims that he came to change nothing of the Old Testament. The Old Testament is just full of horrors. It promotes slavery and child sacrifices. I also came to find out that God is actually a racist, genocidal maniac. He's very selective on which type of people will triumph and which are just doomed. As I was getting sober, I found myself being always at odds with the Bible and I couldn't agree with anything it said. I just couldn't continue going. And as I was also attending Marijuana Anonymous, I figured out that I didn't need those groups at all. In fact, neither do you. The power is within you. You don't need to see my videos. There is no right or wrong way to get sober. There is really no clear path to sobriety. Life is completely subjective because everything that you perceive and witness is through your subjective senses. How you choose to get sober will always be very personal. The 12-step program is completely erroneous, and that's why a lot of people are destined to fail. There are no real instructions on sobriety. For the first time ever in the history of mankind, human beings have so much access to so many mind-altering substances. Back in the day, a tribe would go weeks or months before stumbling across honey. Now these days, we have so many things that overload the senses, and our minds are still primitive. Human beings haven't evolved that much from our ancestors. Human beings haven't caught up to the technological advances of today's world. When a human being comes into the world, they're just born in shock. When a human being is born into the world, they're not prepared at what life has to throw at them. So they turn to drugs or religion or anything that they feel can get them along. Unfortunately, all those things are meaningless. There is no intrinsic value in religion because it's all a lie. Unfortunately, we'll never be able to get rid of these people because of freedom of religion. The only thing you can do is look out for yourself. Either way, you will die alone because when you die, you don't take anybody with you. You may be wondering why I have all these figures out here. There's really no real reason why I got these figures displayed. I just wanted to show off my Jakks collection. On the next episode, I'm going to talk to you guys about meditation. I didn't talk to you guys about meditation today because I'm a novice. I've been practicing meditation for about 2 years, and it took me 2 years to finally gain a deep, profound experience. A few days ago, I had what you would consider an awakening. After 2 years of practicing meditation, I finally reached the meditative state. And let me tell you, it's better than any drug I've ever done. Reality is much more interesting off the drugs. I used to believe that meditation was just a gimmick from the East, and it was just an excuse for certain immigrants not to work. Along with being an atheist, I was also a skeptic, so I always did doubt things that had to deal with spirituality. So not only Buddhists and Hindus study meditation, and a lot of Buddhists don't have gods, or believe that God is even necessary to sustain human life. I actually do believe in God. I believe in 1 billion gods, one for each person that believes in Him. Just the way I came to find out that religious people are no better or have better lives than non-religious people, I also came to find out that marijuana users aren't stereotypically mellow. The whole idea behind marijuana being used to calm you or relax you is actually a lie. I've noticed that marijuana users are actually very angry and hostile people, kind of like churchgoers. As you get older, you come to realize that a lot of the stereotypes that you grew up believing in are actually false. And truth is stranger than fiction. Oh yeah, I also want to take back those 2 things I talked about in prior videos. I don't know how long you guys have been listening to me, but first thing, Back to the Future is actually a very good movie. You know, you have to use your imagination a little. The genre is called science fiction, which I always thought that title kind of contradicted itself because science is facts and fiction is lies. I've also decided to quit drinking alcohol. I know that in my first video, I'm advising you to use alcohol as a medicine. Don't listen to that. So what made me change my mind about alcohol? Well, recently, certain things have come to light. I've always been a big fan of documentaries, especially the whole fly in the wall style of documenting, which Michael Moore is really good at. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the documentary Super Size Me. It's by Morgan Spurlock. So Morgan Spurlock died last year. He died because he had a bad liver. Now in the documentary Super Size Me, Morgan Spurlock claims that it was McDonald's, eating McDonald's for a whole month, that caused him to have a bad liver. But recently it's been revealed that he was actually an alcoholic and had been drinking for about 30 years straight. So yeah, just don't drink. Just don't smoke. Just don't worry about it. And tune in next time for the next episode, meditation, where I'm going to tell you more about meditation and all the wonderful things that it unlocks. Have a good day. Take care. And stay clean.